Welcome back to the Culinary Barn for some more holiday favorites. For today, we're going to be using my wooden cookie blocks. I mentioned these in a video a few weeks ago and asked if you wanted to see me make some cookies out of these, and you did. So I'm going to. Now, obviously, these are a special purchase, but you can buy them online, or if you happen to have a friend who likes to tap about with wood cutting, get them to make you a special one completely curated to your taste. For me today, I have the beloved squirrel, or not so beloved squirrel, depending on your gardening situation, but this little cutie, put that a little bit closer, this little cutie, and then the pine cone as well. So I'm going to make a very simple molasses spice dough, which is my favorite, but you could make a slightly stiffer gingerbread or even kind of like a Schwechtelos type cookie dough, like the Dutch cookie. This is very similar to all of those. I love to have these with just a simple cup of tea, particularly in the winter time. So otherwise, it's a very simple recipe to put together. Again, pantry staples. I'll show you the best way to get the dough out of the molds, which is a little bit of trial and error. And trust me, I've tried many different ways of using them, but there is one way that seems to work all the time. So, in terms of the ingredients, again, couldn't be simpler. I've got regular all purpose flour in the bowl here. And this is where you can have some fun again with spices. I'm going with cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, and clove. I have about a teaspoon of the cinnamon, and then about three-quarters of a teaspoon of ginger, half a teaspoon of the nutmeg, and then just a scotch of the clove because it can be very overpowering if you use too much of it. So I'm going to put all of our dried spices in here, along with a pinch of salt in there, and then I've got some baking soda in here as well. So all of our dry ingredients go in. I've got my trusty little favorite mini whisk here, little French mini whisk. So just incorporate all of the dry ingredients together. And then in a separate bowl, I've got some just lightly browned butter. You can just use melted butter, but I took this just a step farther and let it get just a little bit brown for some extra flavor. So melted butter into a separate bowl. Get all of that goodness out. So, and then molasses. Now, this is what I call grandmother style molasses, but it's unsalted molasses. And to have it come out of the cup easily, I just sprayed my little cup here with a little bit of canola spray, and it easily comes right out without any mess. I like a little touch of vanilla. This is optional. I'm going in with just a good kind of heaped teaspoon of vanilla bean, but of course, you can just use a regular vanilla extract. That's what you have on hand. And then just a little bit of regular all-purpose sugar in there. And I combine this together. Just get that molasses mixed down in that lightly brown butter incorporated. Very sticky, like toffee at this stage. And then 2 eggs, room temperature eggs. No, good. And then just get these incorporated into your molasses butter mixture. You can, of course, do this in a stand mixer, but it's very easy to do by hand with just the 2 bowls. I have the oven preheated to 355 degrees. And I've got a cookie tray, actually 2 cookie trays, lined with parchment paper. All right. So this is nice and incorporated now. All of the eggs are incorporated, and it's a little bit more fluid now, as you can see. All right. So into the dry ingredients. All of this off. Wet into the dry. Make sure you scrape the bowl completely. Don't let anything left behind, as it will throw off your measurements. All right. Clean bowl. And then just incorporate. I just fold it to start. Taking my spatula and going down to the bottom of the bowl and pulling it up and over. flour. And this is going to come together in a rather firm, quite dense dough. So it's easier once you get most of the flour incorporated. You can turn this out onto your surface, which is what I'm going to do now. Bring it onto my wood top here. Scrape all of that out. And then I'm just going to knead it the rest of the way with my hands. Just like you would bread dough or pastry dough. Just push it a bit away from yourself, pull it back, and then push it away again. And then give it a quarter turn each time. All right, this is coming together nicely. Now, depending on how sort of dense the flavor you want of the molasses, you can certainly add more. It'll make the dough a little bit darker, depending on how much molasses you add to it. And if you're not a huge fan of molasses, you could use a combination of honey and maple syrup, if that's your preference. All right, so just a little bit of light kneading here, making sure I've got all my little bits. And I've got a nice dough here, like so. Now you could make this in advance if you wanted to, keep it well wrapped in the fridge for a few days, and then you could come back to it and do the process of actually portioning the out. So as far as portioning goes, in order to make your life as easy as possible, if you have a digital scale, this will help you make sure that each little wood cutout has the exact same weight of dough in it, so that all of your cookies end up coming out the same. Depending on what blocks you actually have, the actual weight is going to be different. In my case, I need a little bit more for the pine cone than I do for the swirl. For a pine cone, I need about 2 ounces of dough, and for the swirl, it's only about 1.5 ounces. So just using a digital scale here, I'm just going to weigh out first for my pine cone, just about a 2-ounce ball, like so. And then we're going to press it into the mold. But again, just for safety's sake, I'm just going to give it another fresh spray of canola between each pressing of the dough. Little ball of dough, brush a little spray, and so press this in. It gets much quicker as you go along because you get very used to how much pressure you have to put on. So don't fret about this being a very long task. It does get quicker. It's sort of like pancakes. You have to make the first 1 or 2, and then it just becomes super easy. All right, last one is in the form. Pop out and onto the tray. So again, I have the oven preheated to 350 degrees. I'm going to put these in the oven. They're only going to take about 12 minutes or so, just to get gently golden on the outside and just cooked around the ridges and just cooked on the inside. I want them like crisp on the outside, but still just a little soft on the inside. Perfect for dipping into tea. So I've got my 3 trays into the oven. I did just come back from London and had a wonderful time. And of course, I stocked up on books because I can't help myself. So I thought I would share one book with you that I picked up that is very seasonal. And I got this at Books for Cooks, which if you haven't seen it, I did do a video on Instagram about the day that I did go to Books for Cooks, and I had such a great time. But this is one of the books I got. This is by Jane Leavitt. It's the Get Ahead Christmas book. And I read this on the plane coming back, again, just for some extra inspiration. And it's all like kind of classic stuff. There's nothing, world changing in here that we've never heard of before. But I shouldn't say that. There is some things in here that are kind of interesting. But generally, if you're someone that kind of gets a bit anxious about having to do it all and, do it perfectly, there's no such thing. Just do your best and have the confidence that it'll all work out exactly how it's supposed to. But this is a good little book to have at your hand. It gives you kind of right from the planning of a meal or an event. There's gift giving ideas in here, edible gift giving ideas. But I just thought it was a really fun little seasonal book to add to the collection. So again, Jane Lovett, the Get Ahead Christmas book, subtitled The Indispensable Companion for Effortless, Festive Entertaining. This is a good one if you're looking for a seasonal cookbook. All right, our woodcut cookies are out of the oven and they do expand a little bit. So some of your detail will go away compared to when you first put them in, but they do hold most of their shape, so very clear what they are. Now, these are beautiful just as they are. Let them cool completely, package them up to give as a gift, or put them in a glass storage container to keep in your pantry for any time that you want. If you want to zhuzh them up a little bit, you could do just a dusting of icing sugar, which I will show you here. It'll kind of just look like snow on the pine cones. Just a light dusting, and it'll show the outline of the pine cone itself. And if you want a little bit less, you can just blow a little bit off, and then you can actually see more of the ridging of the cookie itself. Alternatively to that, you can make a very thin icing glaze on top, so thin that it doesn't really add much color. It just adds a little bit of pale white sheen to the top of the cookie. So in a bowl, I've just got some powdered sugar, and I'm going to thin this right out with some cream or milk or water. And you want it to be very, very runny so that it doesn't really color the top of the cookies too milky white. So just get it very, very thin. I need a little bit more cream. And then I just use a pastry brush and then just take your cooled cookie, and I go against the grain, particularly on the pine cone, and just brush this little bit of glaze onto the cookie itself. And as this sets, you'll just get a very faint glaze of icing, like so. And as it dries, it'll go a little bit more translucent. So this is a nice way to kind of perk up the actual indentations on the cookie. And then for our little squirrel here, same thing, just with this thin, and just go over the whole cookie if you want, or you can just do his tail. But I'm going to do the whole thing, and this will help as it dries. It'll help all the little indentations that are there to represent his fur. They'll really stand out more when this dries. Like so, just a light coating. You don't want it to pool anywhere in any of the ridges. And then there's our little squirrel. So I'm going to do the rest of these with the glaze and some with a little bit of powdered sugar. And I'm going to package these up. I'm giving these to a gift to somebody on Thursday. So these are great to make in advance. You can do everything, including the glazing, and you can store them in the freezer until you're ready to gift them. Otherwise, like I said, just in your pantry in a glass container, and they'll last a few weeks. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. I hope you give them a go. And like I said, if you have somebody that makes wood blocks, you can make a custom one. You can make a family crest or any sort of holiday design that you want. Otherwise, you can find them online. Just type in wood block cookie shaper or mold, and they should come up for you. I hope you enjoy this recipe. It will be posted on eatandgrace.com. Happy holidays, everybody.